All right, Brian, can we do something like that for him?
Yeah. I'll see what needs to be done.
Okay, we're live.
All right.
All right. Thank you, council members, department heads, for attending the meeting. This is February 23rd, Tuesday. And we're going through our city budget, which I'd like to thank again the mayor for having to come out with a 0%, and our budget director, Heather Mowat. Right now, we're going to entertain discussions from Urban Economic Development, Section 8, URA, Human Resources, and Golf. Heather, you have the com.
Okay, we're going to go very quickly as it relates for Lori Robel. She manages civil service, human resources. That's in the general fund, page 18. Really not much of a change here. Just taking a look at something. Something looks a little weird to me, so I was just looking at
A
something.
whopping $200 and something.
Yeah, I was just looking actually at salaries real quick because it looked a little odd to me. Sometimes I don't always look before I got on civil service. Yeah, this year we have a longevity that's in. Oh no. Okay, so you'll notice that civil service salaries went from 74,200 to 83,000. If you turn to page 57, where it actually lists out the individual salary amounts, little bit of a change this year. As you know, when the pandemic hit and we were looking to try to be more efficient, we had some early retirements. We offered an early retirement incentive. So we took it upon ourselves to see what we could move around in job specs that fell within civil service criteria, so that we wouldn't have to replace certain positions. And one of the things that we found is there's a young lady who works in our corporation counsel's office who is working 1 day a week within the personnel and human resource department. She's doing everything from like right now, we're scheduling agility tests for police department prospective employees. So she's scheduling that. And because Lori pretty much is a one-person office, she's just helping her with filing. So you can see down on there under civil service salaries, you will see an extra $8,636 put to under civil service salaries put to that cost center. If you look immediately up, it just happens to be under court counsel, you see $8,636 being subtracted. So we're just trying to show the time and effort put in. So that's really the only difference in civil service for this year. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions that relates to the civil service cost center. Okay.
Could I ask you a question, Heather?
Sure.
We have a civil service commissioner, right?
Yes.
She's been handling all the details for the service test, civil service test, up to this point?
Not really. We had a woman that was helping her. Her name was Katie. She had been working at the fire department, and she several years ago came up here to assist her. We also had Becky Duvall, who works for Dave Short in DPW. She was assisting. So over the past couple of years, we've had people, kind of part-timers, coming and going, assisting her with this stuff. For the past year, the last person to have the job was Phyllis Saraceno, and she was a part-timer. She worked here probably, I think, half day every day, actually. When the pandemic hit, she decided that this wasn't the place for her. And so during the pandemic, we just didn't offer any tests and everything. I mean, just pretty much quieted right down. So during the year, we haven't really needed it. So now things have been picking up again. We have the hole again. And that's when we were looking for other people that could take on additional responsibilities. And that's when we thought that this young lady that's assisting the court counsel's office.
Understood. But what else does a civil service commissioner do? What is her function? Other than what's that?
Yep, other than civil service. She's also our human resource coordinator. So that means when someone starts or someone leaves, There are a variety of policies, everything from IT policies that need to be read and signed to filling out all the forms. She also does a number of things as it relates to, we have filings with the EOC. We have just today a couple of COVID cases. She's managing, she works with the controller's office on managing sick time. She manages workers' comp cases, follows up on comp cases with the county. Making sure that people go for their fit for duty tests for whatever department. She does that. She's managing.
Okay, could I ask you, does that come under the salary of,
Yeah.
of her salary, or does she get additional
Nope,
salary
no
for the?
Nope, no additional. Mm-mm.
My thought process is maybe consolidating with the county, give civil service the county. Give it to Mr. Johnson there, maybe save some money, and then just have her as, however, taking care of the health or, anything to do with health insurance. That might be, this way it'd be a load off of her, and then she could just concentrate on, just for the
Like
health
I will
insurance.
definitely, I will definitely mention it to the mayor. I think how he would respond is that we have a variety, the county has a lot that they do, but we also have, a pretty large fire and police department with very explicit and specific criteria for all the things that they do. And Lori is keenly involved with that. And so I would think that the county would find that they would need to hire someone additional or a part-timer to be able to come in and manage some of those things, because Lori does spend a lot of her day on it. So, but I can definitely mention it to the mayor.
Heather,
Mhm.
so is this the proper time to ask, like, I'm looking at corporation council and that stuff there, or are you coming back
Well,
to that?
Corporation Council is on Thursday.
Okay,
Thursday.
all right, okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions as it relates to civil service, human resources? One of the other things that Lori does do is she also, we'll see this on the revenue side, she assists the school district. We get paid by the school district to assist with exams and a variety of other duties, a variety of filings that if we were to go to the county, someone would have to do those functions also. And so that's when you see under contracted services on page 19 for human resources, that's where the majority of that goes, and we see it come back. We come back through revenues, but that's postage for. We all have mail is in there too, but she manages all the exams. So.
Do we? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now, when we do the stuff for the school system, do we charge them for that, or is
Oh
that
yes. You'll see it. There is, I believe, half her expenses and half her salary line is paid by the school district. So
Okay.
it's, when we get to the revenue side, which I think we're doing on Thursday also, we'll go through that line by line.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for?
Why isn't it listed as a chargeback under the civil service salary?
Because it shows up in revenue on page. Find it here. On page
Can it be
7.
listed as a chargeback or no?
Well, what we're doing, it can be, I suppose, but we're just showing it as revenue. We're getting the revenue. So, I mean, if you look at page 7,
It's going into the general fund, not toward her department.
but her department is in the general fund.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see that the most recent year, 1920, we received 13.3 in civil service testing revenue. That's from all the civil service tests we do. We do certain tests for the school district. The school district, we received 55,000. So we actually are paid for those services. Is there any other questions as it relates to human resources and civil service?
I have a question, Heather. It's kind of dealing with human resources. You there?
I am.
So, over the years, we have some non-union department heads that receive, a little bit more than 2%. Then, their pay raises, the COLA, basically, every year. Are we doing it this year for some of the department heads that missed out over the last few years?
Yep, and I'm actually one of those included in that. Every year, the mayor takes a look at those individuals who have been taking on additional duties beyond their job description, and putting the extra effort in, and trying to make sure that they're being paid for their services. This year,
Okay, so
go ahead.
it's just you then, right?
Nope, it's not just me. It's also Diana Corey, two gentlemen within the Corporation Counsel's office, Zach Warren and Joe McBride. We have a gentleman in URA, Gene Allen, and then an employee in UED, Kathy Mack. And as we were going to go through them, I was going to outline it to you when we go through the salary lines. That's why when I saw civil service high, I thought, oh, geez, did I make a mistake? And that's when I went back and I remembered, that we did a charge back for that employee that's working in the law department, but 1 day a week for human resources.
Okay, so, my question was, I'm not sure when Dave Short or Fred Sperry received anything above that 2%, to catch up. Have they?
They did last year. It was probably halfway in the middle of the year prior. They came in, they both asked for raises. The mayor.
Oh, so they went through the E&A then?
Well, no. The mayor really likes to do raises with the budget. He likes full transparency. And he really hates to go to just E&A with a raise unless it's absolutely necessary. He waited. We brought it up at the budget last year, and I believe it was Mike Mahoney, Dave Short, and Fred Sperry.
I'm fine. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm about the 2%. I passed that resolution before, but I also know that we have union people that are making more money than the department heads, and they work for each other. And I'm happy that we're doing the 1%. For those department heads that are, they do an important job. They've been with us for a long time, and to make sure they catch up a little bit, by little. That's all I was asking.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And I have an explanation for every one of them. So when we go through the departments, I'd be happy to provide it. Okay.
No, they all work pretty hard. Good.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, since we do have Brian with us, and I see Chris Pastorelli behind him, I'm going to try to explain a little bit how UED works. There isn't much information here, but it's on page 82. Brian, if you want to go through a little bit with how UED's budget is put together, the timeline for the budget, and how it proceeds to E&A because it's a grant. And then we also want to talk a little bit about, as I just mentioned, there was one employee within his department within that department per se, that he was proposing an increase for Kathy Mack.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. As is noted on page 82, this is largely based on estimates. At this point, Congress has approved a budget for CDBG, home, and ESG for this upcoming program year. HUD staff in Washington is currently running 2 calculations for every entitlement community across the country, including the city of Utica, to determine the home, CDBG, and ESG allocations. I'm expecting that number to be provided to the mayor's office in writing within the next couple of weeks. But in lieu of that, based on the budget from last year, the total budget approved by Congress for each of those 3 programs as compared to the total budget this year, we're expecting everything to remain basically the same. There may be some small increases potentially in home and CDBG. I believe ESG will likely remain roughly about the same. again, once we're made aware of those allocations, our department will have 60 days to put together what's called an annual action plan, which basically breaks down how we're going to spend the home, CDBG, and ESG allocations. And at that point, we'll have firm budget numbers once that's submitted, probably in April at some point, in terms of how each was going to be spent. But I believe Heather did plug in some placeholders in terms of what we expect in terms of revenue as well as expenditures, in terms of some salary lines, and then just rough numbers. In terms of ERP, I believe 800,000 is plugged in again for street construction as we did last year. And then just rough numbers, really placeholders more than anything for youth services, senior services, and the like. In terms of the table of organization, as Heather did mention, there are 2 non-union employees within the Department of Urban and Economic Development, including myself and a secretary. That secretary is currently making $39,700. She's been with the city for over 20 years. She does have a stipend for managing the ROP program of $5,000, but I did ask the mayor to support an increase for her, and he and Heather were able to increase her salary to $45,800 and change. Any questions?
So just one thing I want to kind of recap. Because the CDBG funds are a grant, because it's off cycle from our regular budget, once Brian goes and does presentations, he opens it up for public comment, wants the public participation's requirement of CDBG funding. Once all of that is collected, a budget is recommended. It works its way through HUD. It isn't just because mayor or anybody else wants to give money away. It has to meet certain criteria. Everything from age to income level. And then once that budget's ready to be presented, it does proceed to E&A. Which they do ask quite a few questions about different individual lines and why. So we occasionally have spirited conversation at E&A over those items, but that's basically why you don't see it today. It's because it's off cycle and it's a grant. It's considered a supplemental appropriation. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for Brian as it specifically relates to urban and economic development. Okay.
Well, I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, Chris Pastorelli is here. She's sitting behind Brian. As some of you may recall, Chris wanted to retire last spring. The mayor really lobbied for her to stay on a little bit longer. And we were able to keep her through the end of December, in which she retired. We went on quite an exhaustive search for her replacement because I tell you, she does everything. I used to audit her. She does everything from managing personnel to managing her budget to managing, I believe, more than 1,400 individual vouchers for Section 8 housing, in which she and her team have to annually, if not sometimes monthly, based on people's employment, certify that they meet the criteria for Section 8 vouchers. You know, we have quite a diverse population, and so she is remaining with us part-time temporarily until her full-time replacement is transitioned in. Her full-time replacement has not started yet. We're hoping to see her in the next couple of weeks. She was giving her employer a notice. And so I will leave it up to Chris Pastorelli and Brian to talk a little bit about Section 8 and where we are. And once again, just like with CDBG, Section 8 is on a different timetable than our city budget. And because it is grant funding, it does also proceed to E&A. So Brian and Chris, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your year and then how you foresee the year coming.
what a year it was with COVID and trying to get our clients, you know, we don't want them homeless, so we did a lot of changes in terms with the clients to make sure the rents were paid out. We're working with the, legal services to make sure we don't have a lot of homeless people coming up this next year when the moratorium ends on, evictions. So that is a big thing. Our office is working with landlords and tenants to see if we can get some repayment agreements on some behind rent, do interims to make sure the rent is paid. Again, our budget is not set yet. We're waiting for Congress and Senate. They're busy doing other stuff, I guess. So we don't have our budget. I don't expect it to come maybe in the same timeline that Brian is looking at. So hopefully, you know, they'll fund us, hopefully a little more than they did last year, but pretty much it'll probably be right around the same. Any questions?
Yeah, it's
Can you
been
hear
quite, yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so some of the issues, I'm assuming are, the landlords can't kick anybody out.
No.
And is that something that you're working on, how to work, how we're gonna help these landlords out that have been getting stiffed for all these months?
Well, the ones that are on Section 8, if the clients, if their income has decreased because of COVID, they lost their jobs, or, you know, they're not getting paid, or the hours, we're doing adjustments to make sure we're paying that extra rent for them.
How if they're just not paying? How if they're on Section 8 and they're not paying their share? Is there something that we could do about it, or do we,
We're working with the landlords for repayment agreements. We're hoping that they'll sign a repayment agreement, whatever the tenants are behind, so they can catch up. You know, we don't want homeless people, and I don't know how the courts are gonna handle onslaught of evictions once this is lifted, or if it's gonna be, you know, continued on. I don't know how that's gonna end up in the future, but we'll see at the end of March how that will end. But HUD's advice is to try to get the tenants for a repayment agreement with the landlord to see every month to catch up on that rent.
Mhm. All right, well, thank you very much.
Hey, Chris, this is Councilman Beatrice. How are you?
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good. So can you just explain to me, Section 8, am I wrong to think that if somebody's on Section 8, that the check automatically goes to the landlord?
Yes, the check goes to the landlord.
So they basically can't, if somebody's on Section 8 and they're renting an apartment, their landlord should have got paid the whole time through the pandemic, correct?
Right, but we don't pay the full rent. We pay a portion of the rent based on the tenant's income.
Okay.
So if the tenant's income is decreased, we should be paying more of the rent, but, you know, the tenants have got to let us know what's going on so we can follow through with correspondence with, you know, depending on who we have to talk to, either the landlord or the tenant.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Chris or Brian regarding Section 8?
Oh, I do have a
Okay.
question for you, Heather. This time on page 90, I see job number 6503. It goes from 54,051 down to 39,966. Is that a typo, or how did the decrease?
Yeah, that has to do with a retirement. We had a gentleman had been with us probably for 30 years. He decided in the summer, he actually decided he took the early retirement incentive. He was, I believe, a senior housing assistant inspector. So there was a gentleman that was in our codes department that applied for the position. It was felt that he has done a great job. And because, you know, he has at least 1,400 inspections to do a year. And he then decided to take a transfer, made a little bit more money, not a lot, a little bit more money, but he now has the opportunity to take the senior inspector test and move up to that spot. So it was really just a reduction of the spot, and the other gentleman had longevity, which brought him to the 54,000.
Okay, thank you.
They really
Any other
don't make much
questions?
money, do they?
No.
No, not to start out. I could see
Yeah.
that.
But you can even say what these guys have been here a while. Gosh, they can't even break 50. That's a tough nut.
Yes. Any other questions for Chris or Brian as it relates to Section 8? Okay, thank you, Chris. Now we'll move on to URA. URA is on page 91. Brian, if you want to talk a little bit about your year and how you plan to go forward, and then a little bit about the salary increase for the marketing director.
Thank you, Heather. We did put together a budget for the Urban Renewal Agency, and it was presented to the Urban Renewal Agency at their meeting last Thursday and approved. Councilman Beatrice and Burmaster were both present and reviewed and approved the budget. Just running over quickly, given the moratoriums on evictions as well as foreclosures, it's a little bit difficult to forecast what kind of revenue we're going to be looking at this year in terms of sales. Most of what was put in for sale of property, I believe I have $550,000, it's my hope that we have a couple of larger properties still out there, including a 5.3 acre parcel on Oriskany Boulevard, as well as the Northland building. It's my hope that we can come to some conclusion on both of those properties in this upcoming fiscal year, and that would be a large portion of the 550 right there. I'm really not counting on a whole lot of inventory or supply of houses. So that's really what I'm pinning most of the hope for on for sale of the property.
I just want to add something here. One of the things we were watching very closely was between April and this past fall as to how our numbers were looking for people and timeliness of paying their taxes. And what we found is they actually paid more on time this year than they did the prior year, which is not what was our expectation. And so we're finding fewer and fewer people are paying later. And this means that we're getting fewer properties in foreclosure, which is exciting for the city overall and the general fund, but not so exciting for Brian and the URA for sales.
Just in terms of the table of organization, Heather did mention Gene Allen's salary. He is non-union, has been with us for roughly 8 years, I believe. The mayor is proposing that his salary go from $46,283 to $51,283. So it's a small increase. Other than that, in terms of expenditures, we really kept the expenditures fairly similar to the previous year, the current year that we're in. There's nothing really significant that's proposed in terms of major increases or decreases in the expenditure lines. Any questions?
I had one, but that was back on the last thing we were looking at, the
You're muted, Jack.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
You muted yourself.
Can you hear me again?
Now we can.
Now we can.
On the Section 8, you had with the inspectors, you had the top guy, you had it blank, vacant, and then, but you're still showing the full salary on that. What was, is somebody going to fill that? Is that why you're planning somebody to fill it?
Are you talking about sorry,
I think it was the Section 8, in the Section 8 area. You had
What page are you on?
I lost it when I turned this is so much fun to work through, you know.
I think it's page 90.
Was it 90?
My book fell apart.
That's crazy. I hate this book.
There's a part-time administrator that was
So the
unfunded, I
housing
think, in the,
administrator, you got vacant, and you got 68,000.
Yeah, so you see that, Jack. So that's the full timer that hasn't started yet. We put out an offer to her. She's in the middle of a background check, and so we're hoping that she will be putting in her notice shortly. Underneath her, you see
Right.
the part-time one. That is Chris Pastorelli, who agreed to
Right.
come back after her retirement. So
Right, but
go ahead.
she's not going to be working a full year. So why are you showing the full amount there?
Well, because when I did the budget for you, I didn't know that we weren't ready to put out an offer to anybody yet. I mean, it was very difficult to try to find. We had probably a good almost 100 resumes, and we narrowed it down to 3 people. And so at the time that the budget was put together, we hadn't even interviewed them yet.
So you think she'll be on board before the budget's passed and this goes forward?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And then you will have several months of transition so that Chris Pastorelli will be able to train her. She's had no training at all.
Okay.
And the software system and how to go through and the 1,400 vouchers and how, the income levels and how to fill out all the paperwork.
And is this what Christine was making last year, 68,939?
I think she was making with longevity a little bit more, probably around 75,000.
Okay, so this.
She'd been here for 30 years. I mean.
So is this is the starting pay then, 69?
Yes.
68?
Yep. Starting. Yep.
Okay.
Can, this is Celeste. Can I go back and ask a question? Can you describe Gene Allen's position, just his duty?
He really handles everything in terms of urban renewal. His title is marketing director, but he oversees, he works with the comptroller's office in terms of the foreclosure process. He cleans out, he makes sure the properties are cleaned out once they come into the city's possession. He's responsible for marketing them, setting up appointments for people that want to go through the property, showing the properties, assisting applicants in completing the applications, advising the board when they're reviewing applicants, advising the board in terms of what the property needs, his view of the applicants, and then assists with closing out the files, inspecting the properties after the new owners have made whatever improvements they committed to, so that a certificate of completion can be filed with the county and our lien can be taken off.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Brian as it relates to URA? Okay, on page 95 starts our golf fund. I spoke to Mike Seminaro today. He is on the road traveling home and is not going to be with us today, but I'm pretty familiar with his budget. They did have an excellent year. Couple of things, as you know, for a while, the only thing you could do was golf.
Has left the meeting.
Exciting. So we had quite a turnout up there, and that's really, we owe that to Mike Seminaro, who worked really hard in trying to get things reorganized up there. It was decided early on that this year we would not accept cash, and that was a state mandate. They weren't allowing us to accept cash at a certain point, and I think for the most of the year we did not accept cash. We only accepted credit cards. And Mike really watched the expenditures. We worked together on that, but it was mostly him. And so right now, prior to this past year, we had a negative fund balance of right around 70 grand. I anticipate that we'll end the year with a zero fund balance, which means we made up $70,000, which is great. But once again, for a certain portion of the year, golf was one of the few sports you could participate in. We did have excellent weather this year.
Bingo.
Yep, excellent weather. We, even during that time, we did some much needed capital improvements at the parking lot. the entrance, parking spots, and a retention pond that, will assist that intersection and keeping that water right where it needs to be. We will be going back this year and putting the final binder coat on there. We wanted to see how we made it through the winter, if there was much movement of the dirt. In reviewing his budget, the only thing I do want to point out to you, and I know that I believe Councilman Williamson has noticed this, on page 98, there is a position that's noted TBD, to be determined. Mr. Seminaro, as you know, he does this position almost year round. He's not physically here all the time in the winter because there's not the need for that. But he will be looking to scale back in the future his time with the city as as our manager up there. We label him temporary labor. That's the title that he has. And so he is looking for someone that will not just step in to assist him, but will also be there to assist Tim Christian, who is our golf course superintendent, manages our lawns and our property. Presently, we have several people that are utilized through Express contracting services. They are temporary employees. And so Mike believes that this person, he would be looking to find just the right person to be able to step in to not only assist, but really learn the golf course, assist with lawn care, and also get to know a little bit about how the golf course is managed, and to assist him. So he did place that position there, and I know he's been talking about it with the Golf Commission. I know it came up. Again, I know Councilman Williamson a couple years ago had talked about should the city step in and take over from the commission. Was that something that was needed? The mayor has been very open to any opportunities or options as they come about. This year was a great year, and it could have been for a variety of reasons. So we did have a good year, and the mayor's always, always anxious to hear your opinions as to how things are being managed, your ideas. I know President Galimi has spoken to me on several occasions, which I passed on to the mayor about some suggestions and ideas and things that he's seeing. So I will just leave it at that. And I don't know, do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
Well, I can't answer that. Okay, go ahead.
First of all, it's TBD. So is there going to be a name to this position? Is it going to be advertised locally? Is it going to be nationally? What is it actually going to entitle?
I think he's still kind of working that through. I think his thought process was we utilize temporary laborers in the summer to assist our golf course superintendent Tim Christensen with groundskeeping, and that if we could get someone that's young, that he's not, I don't know how young, but someone that's younger that's going to make a lifetime commitment to the golf course. Normally in small areas like this, it's someone that takes it on for a longer period of time. So who's looking for someone that could possibly in the future replace Mike, do lawns, but also make sure that the administration of the golf course is being managed. That's what he's relayed to me. That's what he's relayed to the mayor. Don't know that they know exactly who they want that position to be, but we would advertise the position. The mayor feels strongly about advertising any position within the city's org chart. But that's all I've been made available. That's all I know.
I guess it's my turn. Okay, a couple things. I think I think we need to have an actual job description of what he's looking for, either from having certain certifications to do things, not just, somebody off the street, the good old boy thing. I think somebody needs to know what they're doing. That's with that piece. And I don't think we should put that in there yet until we do have that job description, then maybe run it through E&A at that point. I don't know.
Any position, because it says TBD, would have to come to E&A. More than likely, it would have to be approved also by the Civil Service Commission. He wanted this in here as a placeholder to round out the budget. To try to search for a title, he was just in the process of searching for a title, and wanted it as a placeholder. But I understand I understand your thought process, so I can definitely mention that to the mayor.
Well, I just don't, it doesn't make sense. We made a profit for the first time in a few years, and all of a sudden we're starting to spend. And so I was just curious on that. Another thing is, you said the state mandated the machine up there, no more cash.
What they did was, right as everything started to increase as it related to right there at the end of March, when we had to only have essential people, individuals working, they reduced our workforce significantly. Part of what they were concerned very strongly, the state was about cash handling, and so for a period of time there was no cash being accepted here in the city, and that included up at the golf course. Because remember, at that point, everything shut down. I mean, we weren't accepting anything. We weren't even, if it didn't get mailed to us, we weren't opening our doors. So one of the few places that was open there in, the end of April, beginning of May, was the golf course. And Mike Somaro reached out to the mayor repeatedly, trying to get for us to accept cash, and he routinely, at that point, we're doing daily meetings with the state. The mayor kept speaking with state representatives about cash. Now, we haven't heard much about that since then. People got used to utilizing credit cards instead of cash. And I will say, Mike also did a great job this year at implementing a new system, which now I haven't actually, now that I think about it, I haven't actually seen the results of. But now accounts for rounds of golf, accounts for golf carts, how much is paid, so that we can even see daily totals, where before it was kind of hand counted. Now it's being all done through a.
I thought the system did that already. The system did that, didn't it?
No.
You sure?
Can I ask a question?
Can you hold on?
I have a quick question.
Can you hold on just a second, Councilwoman? Because I was just, Councilman Williamson was still asking me a question. There was a cash register that rang up, but Tim Christensen was working on, I guess last name was Christian. Tim Christian was working on a system, and then when Mike Seminaro started last summer, he kind of took off with it, and they implemented a new way of doing things so that we could now have statistics going from year to year. So I don't know, Councilman, if you have any more questions as it relates to that.
I thought Mark Ford put a system in for you guys.
I believe that was the system. I believe that was the system.
So that's doing everything they need then, right? Mark, didn't he say that to you, that's covering everything, that system?
But that was put in years ago.
No, he just put one in.
Just put one in.
Oh, you just put one in. I thought it was a few years ago.
No. It was last year, I think.
Councilman Williamson, do you have any more questions for me?
No, that's the only concern I have on that. I don't think that, I think that should be, I don't know. I just think they should have because no one's going to go to work. It's a part-time gig. All right. And you're going to get somebody to stay there for 30 years. And there's no, there's no healthcare benefits. There's nothing attached to it. And you want somebody to stay there for 6 months. That's what I'm saying. I think, Mike is a perfect addition up there. I think you got the express people up there. They work out of the office already. You got Hank, he's the pro, so why would you need a secondary guy? You know what I mean? So I don't understand it. So nothing against Mike. I understand he's got forward thought and everything else and what he wants to do, but it doesn't really make sense. But that's just me.
Councilman Friend, you had a question?
Just one regarding cards versus cash. Paying on those card for service fees?
I couldn't really hear your question. You kept going in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. So are we paying a percentage in service fees on the credit card transactions?
Yes, but I believe that they built those in. Just like we do for our tax payments, which you can pay by credit card, but you have to pay an additional charge so that we don't, the bank isn't charging, the bank charges us, so we pass that on. So
Right. So when they have to pay with a credit card at the golf course,
I think it's built
pay
into
for
whatever
with
the
a
fee-
credit
it's
card.
built into the.
We
it's
don't
built
give them a
into-
cash option.
Yeah, it's built into it, into whatever the fees are being charged.
I got
Okay.
something I'd like to ask when you're done, Celeste. You let me know when you're done.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah.
and you are breaking up, Celeste. I don't know what's going on that, but hey, this card business is okay, but this golf course is for the young kids in the city as well. And I don't know how many kids, the young kids, the ages 16, 17 years old, have their own debit card or credit card. And I certainly don't want to give my kid a credit card or my debit card at 15, 16 years old. What are we doing for these kids that only have cash that are coming up there?
I really don't have the answer for that. Quite honestly, I thought Mike was going to be with us today. I don't believe we ended up accepting cash.
But just think about what we're doing to these. We're turning all these young kids away that don't have.
Well, we don't know that we don't know that.
How many
We don't know that we are.
17-year-old kids?
Yeah, we
I
don't know
think
that we
their
are,
own
but you
dad
bring
could
up
give
a
them the
good
credit
point.
card for a few
No,
hours.
I don't think that's the case. You got some kids in Cornhill. They want to learn how to play golf, and they want to play golf. They don't have debit cards or credit cards. And I'm not saying there's going to be a lot of kids in Cornhill, but we don't know how many kids who are actually turning away because they can't pay by cash.
Councilman Lomatico, it's a really good point. I contacted Mike Sormanauer before the meeting. He is on the road, and he said if there were any questions that had to come up, I would forward them to him after, so I can ask him that if you
Yeah,
want.
and I will too,
specifically.
because that's part of accounting. It was,
I just-
the mayor
you hear
just
me?
continued to follow along with the state guidelines. Those state guidelines evolved through the summer. It was not that we didn't want to accept cash, we physically couldn't. And then, like so many other things, it goes by the wayside, and those questions that were so important when things started we don't hear about them right as we got later through. So I will talk to Mike tonight, and I'll get back to you with an answer to the entire committee.
I would just very briefly like to, I hope that I'm coming through better now. I've moved closer to my router. I want to second Jack's concerns there, because I think he's right. And if we build it into the fees, but we don't take cash, we're essentially charging them more because we want to take cash. And that doesn't sort of sit right with me. When you do have to pay a fee when you're in the controller's office.
Yeah, they actually just raised
You
fees.
have to pay when you're in the when you do have to pay a fee in the controller's office, it's because you have choices. So you
I'm confused as to why
pay a fee. But
it's not just debit though. I used my credit card there, so it wasn't. I wasn't paying a fee there, Celeste.
but I think Jack's argument is nonetheless, if you're paying with plastic, that is going to limit certain people's ability to access. Jack's argument stands. I don't think it matters whether it's debit or credit.
No, that makes sense.
Service fee that we.
Yeah.
Excuse me, this is Councilman Beatrice, and I agree with Jack to a certain point, but I know in my business, when we're dealing with 17, 18-year-old college kids, every one of our vending machines, everything and I know it's college, and so we can't compare what Jack's talking about, but today's day and age, believe it or not, most kids have debit cards or credit cards. So I'm just telling you how the stuff that I've seen, and of course it's colleges, not what we're talking about, but even as much as on a vending machine, they all have credit card readers and debit card readers.
I just spoke to Mike. They did not accept cash through the fall. So I think that's something, Jack, you bring up a valid point, and I will talk to the mayor about that in the morning. Okay?
Heather,
Thank you.
Heather, can I ask you one question on that? So all last summer, we went through without taking cash. Was there complaints from people?
There was quite a few at the beginning.
Okay.
Quite a few. Soon it became just, there weren't many complaints at the end
norm.
because everybody just got used to it.
Or they went somewhere else.
Numbers were up fantastic. And so, so I think, I think just because the way the season went, it was just an odd year. It was an odd year. It just didn't come up again in August or September about can we accept cash now?
So what you're saying is you're saying it was done by the state, so they couldn't have went someplace else and paid with cash.
No.
Every golf course had to just take cards, correct?
At least governmental ones did. I want to say all did. I just don't remember. I know that the mayor actually had several conversations with Commissioner DeStito about it, and Dolores about it, because Mike Seminaro was, very frustrated that he couldn't accept cash because so many people were complaining early on. As the season continued on, we heard less and less about it. And I just don't, that's why I couldn't even remember, because we just didn't hear anything more about it. It just became what people were used to. And so many people, quite honestly, end up buying season passes, or some of the specials that they have. We just saw, I just don't have the stats with me. But what I can do, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention something with the cash thing. Jack, you bring up an extremely valid point, and it probably does create a situation where some kids don't have cash. But without getting into the details, we went to an all credit card system temporarily to shore up the accounting of the golf course. And, it did end up working out well last year. As Heather said, people got used to it. And we ultimately had really good traceability on the funds. So I guess we'll have to try and figure something else out for that other piece, because we wouldn't want to walk away from that and go back to where we were as well.
No,
somehow.
but you could have workarounds. Like if you take a look at at a driving range, you put your $20 in there and they give you a coin.
Exactly.
You give that coin to the golf pro there to get your clubs. There's
Right.
other ways to do it.
That's what I mean. So let's figure something else out for those kids. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
All right. Well, I think we beat that one up pretty good.
Any other questions on golf? Okay, that's all I really had for tonight.
I had one.
Okay.
I had one. How do you not hook? Did you hear me?
Yeah, we heard you.
Practice.
How do you not slice your hook? That was it.
Practice.
Okay, so that's all we had originally scheduled for tonight. I don't know if there's any additional questions or anything anybody wants me to take a look at or anything. Tomorrow night we have fire, purchasing, assessment, youth bureau codes, corp council, and IT. And then Thursday we have police, mayor, city clerk, controller, budget, benefits, and revenues.
Very good, Heather. If there's nothing else, I'd like to have a motion to close the meeting.
You can have mine.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. Wonderful job. Michael, thank you again.
Very good, guys.
Have a good night, guys.